Hello guys, welcome back to channel Homeopathic Trials. Today we are going to learn a very important concept of homeopathy, that is totality of symptoms, and we'll also have a look at the different aphorisms of Organon related to it, and also at the end we will see how to form a totality based on the opinions of the different stalwarts of homeopathy. So this video can be a bit lengthy, so please do watch it till the end. And also guys, do like, share and subscribe to our channel, and also share this video as much as you can. So the first question to answer is, what do we mean by totality of symptoms? Now totality of symptoms is defined as the outwardly reflected picture of internally deranged vital force, which is the only true guide in the individualization of the disease and of its remedy. Now, whenever any person falls ill, he starts showing many symptoms, out of which few symptoms are the common symptoms or the symptoms of the disease itself, and few symptoms are peculiar, uncommon, and characteristic. And as we all know, in homeopathy, we focus on these symptoms, and thus collection of all such peculiar symptoms is considered as the totality of symptoms. So now let's understand few important aphorisms from our Organon of medicine related to our topic, totality of symptoms. Now the first important one is the aphorism number 7. In aphorism number 7, Dr. Hahnemann tells us that the totality of symptoms must be the principal and the only thing the physician should consider in each and every case of any disease to cure and to transform a person from the state of disease to the state of health. The next important one is aphorism number 8. Now in this aphorism, Dr. Hahnemann says that after the removal of all symptoms of disease and the entire collection of the perceptible phenomena, that is the perceptible signs and symptoms, then the only thing that remains is the state of health. He further tells us, or rather asks us a question, that how can a disease exist if the patient has been cured for all his signs and symptoms, and if his state of health returns permanently. Now this aphorism is actually an answer given to Dr. Ufland's criticism given by Dr. Hahnemann. The next aphorism, which is very important, is aphorism number 12. Now this same thing from the aphorism number 8 was very well explained in this aphorism number 12. Now here Dr. Hahnemann says that a disease is a state which originates or is caused by derangement of the vital force and can be seen only by the perceptible signs and symptoms of the disease. So then, when these signs and symptoms disappear and the internal alteration of the vital force is removed, then we can successfully say that the disease stops to exist and the state of health gets restored. And thus, finally in aphorism 17 and aphorism number 18, Dr. Hahnemann says that the physician has to only remove this totality of symptoms to annihilate the derangement of the vital force, and thus the totality of the symptoms should be the sole indication or sole guide to the choice of remedy. Now that we have seen the different important aphorisms related to the totality of symptoms, let's understand the types of totalities. So normally we see two types of totalities of symptoms. The first one is the qualitative totality of symptoms. Now this totality of symptoms includes only those symptoms which are characteristic and which help to individualize every patient or each and every case of the disease. Now these are the symptoms which distinguishes two patients of the same disease. Now homeopathy as a science believes in this type of totality. The next important type of totality is the quantitative totality of symptoms. Now this totality of symptoms includes those symptoms which are common to every case of the same disease. Now with such a totality, it is not possible to differentiate two cases of the same disease, and thus with such type of totality of symptoms we can arrive at the same remedy or same medicine for that particular disease, and thus allopathy as a science of therapeutics believes in such quantitative totality. So now that we have known what do we mean by totality, what are the different types of totality, what is its significance, and now is the time to understand how to form a totality, or about the different approaches in forming a totality given by various different stalwarts of homeopathy. So in the first place, let's have a look at Dr. Kent's concept of totality. So this concept of totality is the most famous and mostly followed concept of totality in the clinical practice. Now Dr. Kent used to believe that the physician should treat man in disease and not the disease in man, and hence he used to say that a man could be individualized or characterized more easily by understanding the general expressions of the man in disease. Now Dr. Kent at first divided symptoms into general and particular symptoms. So as we all know, the generals were given more importance as compared to the particulars. And further, the general symptoms were divided into physical and mental general symptoms. And then the mental general symptoms were given more importance as compared to the physical general symptoms. Thus, the final order of importance according to Dr. Kent's totality was as follows. The symptoms of prime importance were the characteristic mental general symptoms, and in them they were divided as emotional, intellectual and subconscious symptoms. Now, emotional mental general symptoms comprises of the symptoms of emotions, for example, anger, sadness, irritability, disappointments, excitement, etc. While those on the intellectual level comprised of the symptoms like fastidiousness or loquaciousness, etc. While those on the subconscious level comprises of the symptoms like dreams, etc. And now, then came the characteristic physical general symptoms. These involved all the cravings, aversion, changes in appetite, changes in thirst, or thermal modalities or general modalities of the person, etc. And finally came the characteristic physical particular symptoms, and these included the characteristic physical particular symptoms from the chief complaint of the patient. So, this concept of Dr. Kent's totality is extremely useful when the case is rich in the general symptoms or in the mental symptoms, and when the remedy has to be prescribed on the basis of constitutional prescribing after taking a detailed case. The next we will have a look at Dr. Boger's concept of totality. So, Dr. Boger very nicely has explained his thoughts on totality and order of importance of the symptoms of totality in his article Some Thoughts on Prescribing. So, according to him, the physician should first try to find the evident cause, the course of development of the sickness, and the effects of the general impressions like temperature, motion, open air, being alone, time, etc. on the person. The next comes the modalities, both aggravating and ameliorating modalities. The next in importance comes the objective expressions of the sickness, that is the sensations and types of pain of the person. And at the end, we should consider the organ affinity, and finally the mental expressions or the mental symptoms can be used for differentiation. Now, thus the order of totality of symptoms in Dr. Boger's concept of totality is as follows. The first important comes the pathological generals, the next comes the causations, the next comes the general expressions of the person, the next are the modalities, both aggravating and ameliorating modalities, the next is the sensation, and finally at the end comes the organ affinity, that is the location, and mentals are just used for differentiation purposes. At last, let's have a look at Dr. Bonnighausen's concept of totality. Now, Dr. Bonnighausen was a very keen observer, and he saw that each patient used to give some symptoms which accompany the main complaint but have no pathological relation to the main complaint, and such symptoms were called as concomitants by him and were given great importance by him. Also, he was the one who focused his attention on the doctrine of complete symptoms, and thus the final concept of totality of Dr. Bonnighausen is as follows. The first comes the quiz, that is changes occurring in patient's personality. Next is quid, that is the nature of disease and peculiarity. Third is UB, that is the seat of disease, that is the location. Next is quibus auxilis, that is concomitants. Then comes the cure, that is the cause of disease. Then comes the commodo or modalities, and finally comes the quando, that is the time modalities. And this concept of Dr. Bonnighausen is very useful in practice in cases where there are very less general or mental symptoms. So, this was just a short explanation of the concept of totalities of these three stalwarts. However, their original work and their philosophies are extremely vast and cannot be understood just by the concept of totalities. So guys, this was all about totality of symptoms. In this video, we had tried to cover all the different aspects of totality of symptoms, right from its aphorisms up to the various different approaches given by the various different stalwarts of homeopathy. So, if you liked our video, please do like, share and subscribe to our channel, and please do not forget to press the bell icon to get notified about our content.